Today's episode was filmed before the tragic news of Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau passing away in their hometown of New Jersey. The Let's Go Blues radio family just wanted to pass along its heartfelt condolences to the Gaudreau family as well as anyone else impacted by this loss. We're so sorry to the Blue Jackets organization, the Blue Jackets fans, and then, of course, anyone who knew Johnny and Matthew. We dedicate this show to their memories, and just know that their memories will live on forever.
Are you a first responder, a veteran, a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, or a Let's Go Blues radio listener? Of course you are. If you're in the market to buy or sell a home, call real estate superstar Mike Burgoyne today at 314-753-4060 or email him at mike@strikewithmike.com to earn special rates today.
A proven winner on the hockey rink, Joe Wolf knows what it takes to be the best. That's why he has the best rates in the area and only has rave reviews of his work with Wolf Power Washing. Get that siding back to its original color with Joe. Call him at 314-420-5434. That's 314-420-5434.
Hi guys, this is Erica Weston with
Valley Sports West.
And you're listening to my favorite St. Louis Blues hockey podcast, Let's Go Blues Radio.
I'm here for it. I'm here for all the hot takes.
I totally see Hoffman putting up 30, 35 goals
in a 56-game season?
Yeah.
You know, Jeff, you were saying you didn't think he was going to score 20 goals next season.
I still think
that's
that.
A possible.
I mean, I will literally be happy to grab a live crow and eat it if Tarasenko comes back and scores 30, 40 goals in the NHL in a season.
With a last name like Bolduc, he's not going to play for us. There's just something about that last name is not going to make the NHL on this team and for the Blues. I just don't see it happening. It seems like a name that is not conducive to play in the NHL.
Kurt Price is already making his claim that Zach Bolduc will never wear a Blues jersey in a regular season game.
No.
And starting on defense from St. Charles, Missouri, number 94, Jeff Ponder.
Hello, and thanks for tuning in to Let's Go Blues Radio. This is Season 13, Episode 46, the Roman Polak episode of the original and longest-running St. Louis Blues hockey podcast. This is episode number 477 all-time. Support for Let's Go Blues Radio is brought to you in part by Mike Burgoyne of Real Brokerage Realty. Contact Mike at mike@strikewithmike.com or call him at 314-753-4060 and get started selling your current home or buying a new home today. And by Wolf Power Washing. If you're in the St. Louis area and need the services of a professional power washer, Joe Wolf is your guy. Call him at 314-420-5434 and get the best prices in the area. Some personal news to start. I have COVID again. Wonderful stuff. It's still a thing, folks. 2024, we are still dealing with COVID. Not nearly as bad as it was, obviously. But this is my third bout with COVID. It still sucks. I mean, it's not what it was the first time I had it. It's mostly fatigue, a lot of congestion. I did have a fever that reached 104 the other day, which was awful. But that only lasted for about an hour. Body aches, body chills, some of that. And it comes and goes. The worst part, honestly, is just like I'll have a moment like right now. I feel fine. I've got a little bit of congestion right now, but otherwise I just feel a little blah, a little tired, but I'm fine. But I could wake up in the morning and all of a sudden I've got 102 fever again, and I've got body aches. Yeah, it's annoying. Anyone who's had COVID, especially after vaccinations, knows that it's not so much that it's like awful, it's that it's annoying. It's just like, just let me get better. Go away, COVID. Please go away. So just wanted to share that with the world because it sucks. And I don't even know how I got it. I haven't left the house. I swear to you, I haven't left the house in like a week. I went out shopping Saturday, and that was it. And, my wife and son go to school, and I'm thinking maybe they brought it back with them, but my wife took a test. She was negative. I don't know. It makes no sense. I don't know how I got it. Somehow it's worked its way into the Ponder house, and of course, it attracted itself to me. So I am at 3 times. I am a 3-timer for COVID. Lucky me. Let's talk about today's show. I speak with Brad Callahan of Hockey North America, better known as H&A, to get his take on the Save the BHL movement that we covered a few weeks ago when we recorded at Obie Clark's. And Brad is an assistant administrator with the H&A organization. So I wanted to get his take on what's going on and, H&A's side of it. Clearly, H&A was not the villain in this situation. They were kind of this third party that was worked its way in. So, no ill will between the BHL and H&A, but I just wanted to get their take as well. And also talked about Brad's hockey tournament side hustle. So if you're if you're an adult hockey league player and you want to get involved in some whether St. Louis centric or travel centric tournaments for adults, he's got 8 on the docket for next year. And so it's kind of his side hustle now where he's kind of making all these big tournaments happen. So if you're interested, make sure you check this out. A lot of interesting stuff to hear from Brad on that. Also, he is slowly working his way into broadcasting. So Brad's kind of all over the place. So just some interesting stuff to hear from Brad and, getting our summer going and, hearing some good stuff from him. So look forward to having you hear all of that. In terms of Blues news, the Blues did sign defenseman Quinton Burns to a 3-year entry-level contract. Burns was a third-round, 74th overall pick in the 2023 NHL Draft. He spent the past 3 seasons with the OHL's Kingston Frontenacs. We can give you stats. We can give you all that. You can read that online. Yes, you can read this online too, but I will say, as someone who is not familiar with Burns' work, I wanted to include something here. So I went to our friends at Elite Prospects, and this is what they had to say about Quinton Burns in their 2023 NHL Draft Guide. So obviously just last summer. They said Quinton Burns is proven capable of handling long minutes in tough defensive assignments. His strength and balance will enable him to box out opponents from the front of the net, and his ability to neutralize passing lanes and deny space. Burns has all of the advanced transition ideas. He spins off checks, attacks the inside, looks cross-ice for options, and even manipulates incoming pressure. And I read somewhere else, too, that they kind of project him at best to be a bottom-pairing defenseman, shutdown-type defenseman. So kind of a good defensive defenseman as it sounds. We'll see how he progresses over time. But clearly the Blues saw something in him to at least continue his progression. Don't let him go back into the draft. So they signed him to this deal. So we'll see how Quinton Burns works his way through the Blues' lineup. Also, one last bit of news that came out. The Blues will be nationally televised for 11 games this season. ESPN, ESPN+, ABC, and Hulu will combine to broadcast 8 games, while TNT, True TV, and Max will feature the Blues 3 times during the upcoming season. So reading that, 3 times this season, they'll be on TNT, True TV, and Max. That tells me they'll have 1 game on TNT, 1 game on True TV, and 1 game on Max is my guess. Maybe all 3 will be broadcast on the Max app. I don't know. But that was the report that came out. Marquee games include the first game of the NHL schedule, which is October 8th at Seattle. That's going to be on ESPN and ESPN+. The Blues' home opener on October 15th versus Minnesota. That will be on ESPN and ESPN+. And the Discover NHL Winter Classic on December 31st against Chicago. That will be on, I stand corrected with what I said earlier, that will be on TNT, True TV, and Max. So that will be broadcast on all 3, apparently. A full list is available on the Blues website to check out all 11 games this season. Also included in this is 101 ESPN, of course, will feature all 82 regular season games on the radio with Chris Kerber and Joey Fidali, with live audio also available in the Blues' app. So again, that was something that comes out every year when they announce the nationally televised games. We always get the full season on 101 ESPN, which is great. For those wondering about what's coming for local broadcasts, to be continued. It's a little more up in the air this year than it has been in the past. So we'll see what happens with Bally Sports Midwest. But I'm sure we'll be hearing something very soon. Don't know if anyone else saw it. Anaheim, the Ducks, they announced actually that they are going to be doing a free streaming service for all of their fans, for fans to check out their games because they're apparently leaving Bally Sports West. So we'll see. Maybe something along the lines of that, which I know people would love, a free service to watch the Blues. That would be incredible. But I don't for sure know that would be a viable option for the Blues. We'll see. But interesting to see what other teams are starting to do with Bally Sports kind of on the way out in covering professional sports. So again, we will talk with Brad here in a couple minutes. First, let's hear from our wonderful sponsors. Thanks for listening. You are listening to Let's Go Blues Radio.
We'll return after these messages.
As a hockey player, Mike Burgoyne knows a thing or two about making the perfect play. And when it comes to real estate, he's always ready to score the winning goal for his clients. If you're a first responder, a veteran, a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, or a Let's Go Blues radio listener looking to score the home of your dreams, you'll receive special rates with Mike. Go ahead, shoot some questions his way, and he'll have the answer quicker than Curtis Joseph on a breakaway.
Curtis Joseph got the paddle down!
Any barriers? Mike will mow them down like Chris Pronger in front of the net. He'll score you your dream home or sell your existing home faster than a Brett Hall one-timer.
Put past the Hall, he shoots, he scores!
See Burgoyne's real estate prowess in action today by emailing him at mike@strikewithmike.com or by calling 314-753-4060. That email again is mike@strikewithmike.com, and that phone number is 314-753-4060. Getting Mike Burgoyne on your team will be the boost your power play needs.
Well, honey, I just priced the power washing for the house, and I think we should just move and condemn this place. It'll be cheaper.
Did you try Wolf Power Washing?
Who?
Oh, I just saw this guy win the Stanley Ponder Cup Memorial Tournament and thought he was attractive, so I looked him up on social media, and it turns out he's the owner and proprietor of Wolf Power Washing. He claims he has the best prices in town.
But does he use non-flammable, non-toxic chemicals that are safe for Wolfie and our son, Little Magnus?
Yes, he ensures there'll be no residue left behind, and he doesn't use any volatile vapors.
Well, this fella sounds like a dream. I just wish I knew how to contact him.
Oh, I know how. You can reach him at 314-420-5434.
314-420-5434, and his name is Joe Wolf of Wolf Power Washing?
That's right.
But how did you know his number so quickly?
I'll never tell.
Wait, what?
That's Wolf Power Washing at 314-420-5434. And make sure to tell him Let's Go Blues Radio sent you.
And now, back to Let's Go Blues Radio, the longest running St. Louis Blues podcast with Price, Ponder, and Day.
And we are back from break, and I'm joined by, I guess I could call him a friend. I'll be nice and say he's a friend. Brad Callahan of H&A. So we're going to talk about H&A, the whole Brentwood BHL thing, but also H&A in general, Hockey North America. It's a very big beer league, men's league, whatever you want to call it, group that is all over. It's not just in St. Louis. Brad is an assistant administrator for them. He's been there for 4 years, been around the league for 5 years. And then also Brad has a lot of other things he does, including adult tournaments, which we'll get into, and then is also announcing on the side as well. So a lot to talk about with Brad. But thank you very much for taking time out of your day, Brad, and talking about some different aspects of hockey than we're used to on this show.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me on, and kind of looking forward. Hockey's a great sport to talk about, so you can't really go wrong anyway. I'm on it.
Yeah, man, that's again we've been doing this show now for almost 14 years. I've been doing summer shows now for up to I think 4 years. This is my 4th year, I think, doing a weekly show over the summer as well. And so it's fun, like, because during the season, oh, the Blues did this, and they're trying to chase the Avalanche in the standings, and like that's all fun to talk about. But learning all these different aspects, I've talked to St. Louis coaches, I've talked to administrators, talking to all these different people that are around the sport in different aspects and different ways. It's just more exciting. It makes the game more exciting because you see the different angles people have in the sport of hockey. And clearly, you've got many different angles that you're working in the sport of hockey.
Well, I mean, it's all over from, like you said, assistant administrator to player to referee, scorekeeper. I mean, I feel like, especially during the fall winter season, I'm at the ice rink at least 5 nights a week, if not more.
I was going to say, I usually see you in an ice rink at least once a week. So I'm like, I think he just lives at the rinks. Like you just go from rink to rink every night, right? And you just sleep there and then start over the next day, right?
Pretty much. I try to stay close to my area. The Recplex and the Ice Zone are two of the closer rinks to me. So when I'm dragged out to, Kirkwood or Brentwood or a little further out, it's like, well, okay, we're going a little past my jurisdiction that I'd like to go on a consistent basis.
So again, you mentioned that you play. I'm going to get you your take on that first. What positions do you? I know the answer to this, but what positions do you play?
So at the B level in H&A for B3, I captain the St. Louis Bullets. We've been around. Actually, that's what got me back on the ice, was forming that team. And then 4 years ago, well, this will be our 4th season. During COVID, I had a bunch of guys who were just fresh out of like ball hockey and maybe a little roller and wanted to get into ice as well. And I'd been wanting to play goalie for a long time on the ice. So we put together a second team. I kind of started putting it together once we got a little more established. I gave the reins over to Drew Cusimano so I could focus more on stopping the puck than trying to run lines as a goalie. It does not go well at all.
No, I would imagine not. As a captain of my team, rolling lines and stuff, I can only imagine trying to do that from the crease. That seems almost impossible. So yeah, you've only played goal now for a couple of years. Do you feel like you're improving, or do you think that at your age you just kind of plateaued?
I mean, I got better as the first couple of years as it went on, but I definitely think between just the bad knee I've got that I've been fighting for years and all the other injuries and stuff like that, I definitely think I've plateaued to an extent. I think it's like any goalie from NHL to Pee Wee. They might have a great night in net. There's a night they'll let in 4 goals on 10 shots, and everyone wonders what in the world happened.
Yep. Oh yeah. I know how that goes. I mean, we've seen Jordan Binnington have, a night where he'll stop 41 pucks and then the next night he'll give up 4 goals on 12 shots. And it's just, what is going on here? So yeah, I think even the pros will be able to relate to that.
The goalies are a special breed of human. That's really the best way that a lot of people put it. They are, I've had buddies tell me there's like, I don't know what in the right mind thinks you're okay putting gear on and sitting in front of a hard frozen rubber puck just launched at you as many times as possible in an hour.
I have said that to goalies and we co-host on the show, Bill Day. I'm like, why? Why do you want to have a puck shot at you? A frozen vulcanized rubber? That makes no sense to me. No, I hate when I get hit with the puck.
I've seen you as a ref when you're playing. You take a shot in the back of the leg, and all I'm hearing you is screaming, ow, ow, as you continuously skate off the ice.
Yep, that did happen recently in a game you refed. I took a shot in the back of the leg, and it's funny because people are always like, the teammates that give me trouble, they're like, well, you shouldn't be blocking pucks with the back of your leg. I'm like, no shit, Sherlock. You think I meant to do that?
I wasn't trying to. It just happened.
Yeah, sometimes the puck, it doesn't go exactly where you think it's going to go all the time, especially with deflections and boards and all that. So yeah, it's sometimes it just ricochets and hits you in a weird spot. Very unfortunately. So I wanted to talk to you. First of all, we had on our show a couple weeks ago. Episode was titled "Save the BHL." And we had a couple guys from the BHL on. And for those who don't know, it's the Brentwood Hockey League, also known as the Beer Hockey League. Some people like to call it. They were losing their ice time because Brentwood had, the rumors were that H&A was going to be taking over that ice time. So these gentlemen were concerned that they were going to be losing their ice time. The BHL had been around since the 80s. And, and if you listen to that episode, you'll know they did not consider H&A the bad guys, not one bit. They respected the league and said, yeah, it's not for us. They play on different nights, different rinks. So we don't want to have to participate in that. Their beef was more with the city of Brentwood, but I wanted to have you on, Brad, as an assistant administrator to kind of say like how the BHL and I guess more Brentwood ice rink and H&A, like how did that whole conversation start where that even became an issue for the guys from the BHL?
Yeah, so we got reached out to back in the middle of May. I can't remember the exact date, May 11th or May 12th, something on the lines of that. And it was from Brad Barbo, who I've seen the last episode with Caleb, and I forget who else was on. And they mentioned Brad Barbo on multiple different occasions about it. And so he reached out to us. And, H&A is always looking to expand. We love the earlier slots. And we were like, well, yeah, we're heavily interested. And I do remember specifically, I asked just, what was the reasoning behind wanting to sell the ice? And from what he told me, that the league was falling apart. Teams were barely able to sign up, which based on Caleb, and I've talked with Patrick Roy a couple of times, was never the case. And I've heard of rumors of, being a wait list for this. But at the time, they were telling me it wasn't doing well. And I thought, at the time, okay, well, this would be a good fit for us. So I got Brad in touch with, our local, head administrator here, Steven Spiros, and Alan Rackvin, who's in charge of H&A. And they drew up a contract to book the ice. And really, after I put them in touch, I did not hear a bunch about it other than, I've seen the posts in the Save the BHL and other things like that. And kind of like you said, I have no ill will towards, the BHL. I actually played a season there. It actually got me back on the ice. I stopped playing in 2012 and I got back in 2019. And my first technical season was in Brentwood for a season. And then that's when I made the transition to H&A. But at the time I thought it was, just a typical house league, and that's perfectly fine. And like you mentioned, every league's not made for everybody. There's guys like those Brentwood players who want only their Sunday nights at one rink or only their, I think, Thursday nights at one rink. And then there's other guys who like the ability to, hop around rink to rink, check out other facilities, and maybe their schedules are a little more open. So I have no problem with BHL, and I understand their frustrations, and I give them a ton of credit for the fight that they've put to put their league back together. I really do, because it's from Caleb, especially based on what I've seen, he has done a tremendous job putting the effort into saving that league.
Yeah, and I'll say, and again, I don't think, talking with you off the air, talking with Caleb on the other side off the air, like there's no animosity between the two leagues. It was just kind of well, wait a minute, why is H&A, why are they giving the opportunity to be buying the ice time? And from you guys, it was, well, hopefully the BHL guys don't hate us for this. And I don't think there was any of that. It was just a matter of, sounds like there was maybe some communication issues with the city of Brentwood. And it just created some weird issues, both internally in the H&A and internally for the BHL. It's just the H&A side, you're an actual business. BHL, it's not owned by the players. H&A, this is a business that would be coming in and taking the ice time and buying up that time, paying for refs, paying for scorekeepers. And I could see the allure for Brentwood wanting to do that because it does kind of take some off the plate. But again, you're talking about a league that's been around, I mean, longer than any hockey league I've known in St. Louis. And, and I know you guys, and we all talked about it. I talked about with some of you administrators from H&A, the understanding of, I get why they're upset.
Oh, they have every right to be upset. And I don't blame them for being mad or frustrated and given the current situation that they're in. And, they've been around since, I can't remember the exact date. It was sometime in the early to mid 80s. And H&A came to St. Louis in 1993. And so we've been around here for about 30, 31 years. So these are the two oldest leagues in the area. Obviously, you have Arch, which has been around for, I think, about 10 years. Maryville kind of keeps stopping and starting, it seems like. I think they're trying to restart their league, but I don't really know all the details there. And then obviously Se13 with the brand new rink. So, there's multiple options, which I think is great to have. I don't think there's any ill will between any of the leagues. At least I personally don't. Like I play in Centene, and I used to play in Brentwood and didn't have really any major issues there. And I've subbed in goal for some Arch games throughout over the last couple of years. So I've gotten a chance to experience it all. And I think every league has its benefits, has its downsides. And for Brentwood, their biggest pull was how long it's been around, the commodity of that group that's together, and consistent night, consistent rink all the time. And I know, like they mentioned, they love going to OB Clark's, which is where you guys were for their episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't blame them because it's a 2-block drive down the street right after their game.
Yeah. Oh, and I'll tell you, when the talk was that H&A might be getting those rink times, I told my teammates about it, and they were stoked. They were like, wait, so we get to go to OBs after games now? And I'm like, that would be awesome. And I do think, and that was kind of, I think one of the big things the BHL guys wanted to make sure to stress was, hey, we're guaranteeing that we're bringing business into OB Clark's, but I'll say from the H&A side as a player, I can't guarantee every team would be like my team, but I'll tell you right now, my team, we get done with the game at 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock. We're heading straight over to OB Clark's because that is the hockey bar in St. Louis.
Oh, and both of my teams have full intention of, if, we have a game on a Thursday night, I think the times they offered us were either 7:30 and 9 or 8 and 9:30 or whatever it may be. Our teams were going to go to the bar, and, H&A has a captain's meeting before the season. And myself and Rick Whitmore, who's also one of the assistant administrators, have both said we were going to talk to everybody about, hey, if you have the Brentwood games, go over to the bar, because let's be real. I love having beers in the parking lot with everybody after a game. But when you get to those dog days in December and January and early February, where it's 5 degrees out at 11 o'clock at night, that heated patio on the back sounds really nice at about that time.
Yeah, I remember there was we had a game. It was like 2 or 3 days before a bunch of us were taking off for Christmas, and we had an early game at the Recplex. It was 7:30, and we were like, oh, that's gonna be perfect. We can all hang out and have some beers after. Yeah, but the weather was -2, and we were like, nope, everybody's going home. So yeah, it would have been great having an OB Clark's right there to go to after the game.
Yeah, and there is a couple bars. I live in the St. Peter's area, so there's a couple bars that aren't too far from there. I'd say maybe triple the distance between Brentwood and OB Clark's. There's a couple if you just head right down the road. There is a couple available there, but they're not hockey bars. And OB Clark's has been a huge establishment around here for so many years, and I think it's really cool. And I go there all the time, and I live a half hour from there. I try to get up there as much as I can because I got buddies on both of my teams that live out in that area. So it's really not just a cool experience. And I wish at the time when the Blues won the Cup, I got to experience that. I don't know if you were there, but that was one of the wildest scenes I'd ever seen in my life.
Yes, a shirtless Pat Maroon walking around with the cup. You got to love it. Oh, man. Looks like a beer leaguer for sure. We love you, Pat. Come on, it's true. So I also want to talk to you about H&A in general. So again, we've kind of talked about the difference between H&A and the other leagues. You mentioned they've been around since, I think you said 93. I joined this league back in, I want to say 2016. And now I'm captaining my team, the Force. Shout out to the boys. So we've won a couple championships over the years. We're rebuilding now, as I like to say, but we have a lot of fun. It's a great league, and we, like you said, it's different nights, it's different rinks, and that, for me, that was the allure, because I like the idea of this night I get to play in Kirkwood, but in 6 days we're playing at Recplex, and it's just nice to experience the different rinks around St. Louis. Would you say that's probably the biggest allure for players, or is it different rink times? What do you think it is?
I think the different rinks is a really cool feature. And, we've currently got on board with Recplex, Ice Zone, Kirkwood, like you mentioned, and Creve Core. And then we started playing at Chesterfield last year as well. And I'm always open to expanding, and I'd love to, add more facilities to that. Because one thing it does is it generates, the ability for people to have maybe closer games to their homes. Like, if you have the same rink, whether it be Brentwood or Centene, some of those guys live in Illinois, or some of those guys live in like Troy, Missouri, which is like 45 minutes west of where I'm at. And if they have that 10:30 game at Kirkwood or 10:30 game at Centene, they're not going to want to drive an hour and 10 minutes just to get to the rink and an hour and 10 minutes home. But if they have a game at Recplex at 9:00, that's definitely a lot more tangible for them. And I think that's a really good opportunity for them to kind of be able to experience that. And one thing that we do try to do is if a guys aren't in a general area, is schedule requests are tried to be accommodated as best as possible. Like if you want, for example, my Bullets and my Vipers team, we just don't like playing Sundays. That's just our thing. And in the last 4 years, we've had one Sunday game total between the two teams. So they do a good job of accommodating if people do have schedule issues. And I think the league overall has so much to provide. Obviously, you've won a couple of championships. I don't know if your team's gotten to experience the Toronto for nationals, but my team, the Vipers, have gotten to go.
The year before I joined, we won, and we did win the year of COVID when basically you had to be vaccinated to go. Most of my teammates were not. So I have not been able to experience Toronto yet, which is, that's gonna bother me until it happens. But anyway, please tell us about your experiences going. And for those who don't know, you win your St. Louis championship of your division, you get to go play in Toronto against other teams in H&A. Tell us what that's like, because you've done it before.
So that was really cool. And my Vipers team got to go up this year. And it was just an incredible experience. We played Washington, D.C. in the first game. We played Boston the second game. And I want to say it was either New Jersey or New York the third game. And it's just cool. The biggest thing about tournaments, especially like that, is you get to see new teams. And like our division, like the Force and the Vipers were in the same division. For those who don't know, last year, it was an 11-team division, which you didn't really get to see each other that much. But at the same time, we saw you guys through 3 times, I think. And then we'd only see the Beavers once. So it was like, well, we were looking more forward to playing them because, we haven't seen them in a while. But at the same time, during the regular season, you like to develop those competitive rivalries. Like the Bullets and the Rattlers is a very, very hard, competitive, physical rivalry up in the B3 division. The Vipers, we match up really well with the likes of the Lumberhacks and the Mad Hatters. Were 2 games, and the Flyers, who we played in the championship. Our championship game went to overtime. So, like, I don't know how much more competitive you can get than a championship overtime game. But going up to Toronto and seeing those squads, I think the biggest worry for everybody is, do the teams match up well? We tied 1, lost 1 by 1, and won 1 by 1. So every game was pretty even from top to bottom. Unfortunately, we didn't make it to Championship Sunday, which is they, take the top 4 out of the class. I think there was 12 in our class, and the top 4 made it. And unfortunately, the only game we lost to, Boston, they ended up winning the whole thing and won a national title. And we had 6 teams from St. Louis go up there. And shout out to the Saints, who were down in our C3 division. They ended up winning the whole thing. So it was a really cool experience to watch them. We got to check out a little bit of their game and see a couple pictures. It was a really cool experience. So shout out to them for, bringing some hardware back to St. Louis. And there was one year, I think, if Whitmore not told me correctly, 6 teams came back with some hardware. Like St. Louis is one of the more premier programs of H&A, which is awesome. And I'd love to be able to bring that back up there and start bringing home some more stuff here for just a little bit of bragging rights almost.
Yeah. And I'll say, so as far as I know, the cities involved in H&A are Boston, Calgary, Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, New Jersey, New York, St. Louis, Vancouver, and Washington. And as you said, championships take place every year in June, correct?
Correct. It's like
in
the
Toronto.
Father's Day weekend or the weekend after it. So it's usually, I think this year was like, it's like the 21st through the 23rd or something around the deadline of that.
And I think it's interesting too, the way, and again, this is, I think, H&A nationwide. Well, I guess two nations wide, whatever you want to call that, North America wide. I like the way that the divisions are structured. For those who don't know, it's not like, okay, St. Louis, you've got A1, A2, A3, B1, B2, B3, because you're trying to match up with the other skill levels from the other leagues across both Canada and the US. So I know last season, I'm not sure if it's going to be the same this upcoming season, but like our highest level is B3, and then there's a B5, there's a C1, a C2, and so on. And so it's like, it may not make sense when you look at it, like, why is there a B5 but not a B6? Well, it's because the skill levels match up across H&A. And I think that is really interesting because, like you said, when you go up to Toronto, it makes the games way more exciting. You're not getting 12-0 blowouts by these Canadian teams, or you mentioned St. Louis being good. It's not like St. Louis is going up against Cleveland and steamrolling everybody. It's competitive hockey because of the way it's structured.
Yeah, and they do a really good job, and that goes up to Elliot Root, who is the head of H&A, and he does an incredible job putting that tournament together. I mean, I think there was 58 teams that went up there. So to be able to put all these teams in their appropriate divisions, get a schedule put out, and here's the thing is the best part up there, there's no 10:30 p.m. games. The tournament starts at like 3 o'clock on that Friday afternoon, and their last game starts at 8:30. They pick it up at 9 o'clock in the morning. It's at Westwood Arena, which has 5 sheets of ice. So it's convenient for them to be able to knock out 5 games in a row and just keep moving down the line. But it's just incredible what he's able to do. And then from like a local administrative point, like us and the rest of the administrative team, it's incredibly hard because you never know what you're going to get year after year, and there's always adjustments to make, but we try our best to try to keep the local divisions as competitive as possible. More often than not, I feel we do a good job. Obviously, there's teams that, we put in the wrong division for a year and, we drop them or we move them up either at the halfway point or pending where they're at kind of halfway through the season. We'll talk about it for the next season. And it's hard because you never know what these guys are going to show up. And then there's nights where you're missing your top 3 guys. So like, you're not going to expect to do much in those games. So, we hear about it. Oh, we should be in this division. We should be in that division. We try our best to accommodate and make it as close and competitive as possible. And I think we do, myself and the rest of the administrative team, do what we can to make it the most competitive. And I think that's the thing is if the teams see the effort, which is what something we try to do and show, I think that's where they go about it in a lot more calm way. Because let's face it, we've all been in tournaments or divisions or other leagues that have been, you're getting canned or you're winning 9-0 every game.
Yep. Oh yeah. That's no fun on either side. I've done both and it sucks. Cause especially when you're traveling too, cause it's like, what's the point? What am I doing driving 3 hours to this tournament if I'm just going to get my ass kicked? So, but anyway, no. So I play. You mentioned. I thought it was funny. You mentioned the teams moving up and down. Yeah. So I know I've told the story on the show before, but my team a couple years ago won the championship, and I remember even talking with you and Steve Spiros about it, and I was like, move us up, please move us up. And you were like, yeah, of course, you won the championship. So we move up, and I think it was like within 3 weeks before the season started, 6 of my 8 top scorers dropped off the team. And I was one of the ones that was left. It was me and one other guy. And I was like, so looking at last season's stats, I'm the top scorer now. That's scary. And he was like, yeah, man. And I'm like, oh boy. So we moved up, got our asses kicked, but you guys accommodated, moved us down to the lower division again, and we ended up still not being great, but still we're at least competitive. So it is nice to see that there is that flexibility midway through the season if you need it.
Yeah, and so occasionally it's very rare. I've only seen it once happen, and it was actually ironically last year. We try to wait till the halfway point, but we had a situation like this last year where there was a team actually in our division, Armageddon. I'm sure you're familiar with. I mean, they ran ransack over everybody. Like I was seeing scores of 12-2, 12-0, 10-1. We played them. And I had one of the other administrators actually keep the game because it was just open a couple days prior. I'm like, hey, can you do this so we can watch it? Just that way we have something to present. And he said, sure. And we ended up losing 6-1, I think. It was not as bad as some of the other scores, but the shots were on goal were awful. I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, it was like 55-21. And it was just, I was dead after that game. I'm pretty sure I laid down in the locker room for like 20 minutes before I even started changing. And I'm like, I'm not moving for a minute.
I've seen that with goalies.
So 6 games in, we, on top of them doing it, the Stealth were really struggling in the division below. They had lost, kind of like similar to what happened to you guys a couple years ago. They lost 2 or 3 of their top guys, and they were just getting run over. And so 6 games in, I said, we need to make a decision fast because I don't know if these guys are going to gut out 4 or 5 more games before we make the move. So it worked out well. The schedule had to get adjusted a little bit just because, we got to put them in the right division and play the right teams. But I think we only had to move a couple of days around, and we gave them well enough notice. So I think we did a good job of handling that situation. And it ended up working out well as both teams. I mean, the team, the Armageddon team that was running roughshod in our division, they ended up winning the next division above anyway. So it's like, well, you were supposed to be there to begin with.
Yep. Yeah. No doubt. Yeah. I was at the game that I didn't play because I was injured, but I was there, and I want to say they 13-goaled us 13-0 or 13-1. And I remember messaging you, and I'm like, you need to look out for this Armageddon team. And you were like, yeah, we're already talking about it. And that was only like 3 games in. So
yeah, it was really bad. And the funny part is there's teams that are just like that. There's teams that try to play too low. And to be honest, I don't get the fun out of it. We talked a little bit earlier about, it's not fun winning 9-0. It's not fun losing 12-0. I enjoy the games. Heck, my team had a playoff game this year. And this is a rule I'd love to change in H&A if I were ever able to make some kind of control over this. We had a playoff game end in a tie. So how it worked is they did the 5-minute overtime. Nobody scored. So it goes to a 5-man shootout. And ended up tied after the 5-man. So you cut off the 5th guy and you go to 4-man shootout. It's tied after 4. Same thing. Cut it down, go to 3. Same thing. Was still tied. We got all the way down to 1 shooter each. Neither of them scored. It was a tie after 1. The rule indicates after that point that the team that had the better record in the regular season gets the win. And I think it's happened from what I was told by Spiros, I think it's happened 3 times in 20 years. So it's a very rare rule, but obviously the Mad Hatters were not happy about the result of it. But I mean, it's the rule. It's something I would love to change because regardless, the way we won was kind of, take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, but those are the games you want to see. Competitive games going, maybe not 15-round shootouts. That was exhausting, but
yes.
Games that are tight. And then our other playoff game went to overtime as well. So like, what a way to just be competitive, and they keep you more into the game and they're more exciting.
Yep. Yeah. I'll admit, we've had games like that where, actually one of the other times it happened was with my team. We won a championship summer because, so we were, at that time they didn't do shootout. It was, we're going to do a 5-minute stop clock, overtime. And if you lose, or basically, I mean, if you're tied after that, the win goes to the team with the better record. We were the team with the lower record. So we had actually killed off a penalty in overtime, and we had about 1 minute left, and we were like, guys, we have to win. Like, we have to pull the goalie if it comes down to it. So we had a face off with 5 seconds left. We scored with 2 seconds left on the clock. And my goalie told me at the time, he goes, I've never won a game sitting on the bench. And I thought about it. I'm like, that most goalies, if obviously backup's different, but That's probably true with most goalies. Like, why would you win a game while you've got your goalie pulled? So, yeah, it was craziness. And I remember thinking at the time, I'm like, man, they got to change this rule. But the problem is ice time. You have to pay for the ice time. And so eventually you just have to come to a conclusion. You can't go 5 overtimes because you just don't have the ice time rental.
Yeah, and that's the downside where, as much as we'd love to change the rule, I realistically just don't think it can possibly happen. I think there's ways to adjust it. For example, like instead of doing the shootout rule, I would think do a 5-man shootout and then just turn it into an Olympic style, because reuse the same shooters, because eventually somebody's going to score. I don't think it's going to last 15 rounds that way.
Yeah, that's true.
But
yeah,
I actually
you could also do a 5-man sack race. I think that could also possibly get you a winner.
Someone mentioned it was actually a goalie buddy of mine, Ryan Flick. I'm sure you know him well. Goes, how about the goalies get in the center dot and just do a sumo wrestling match for that? I'm like, well, that's fair for you. You're 6'6". I'm 5'8". I'm not gonna win that ever. So we're not changing it to that. But I actually remember that game you're mentioning where we didn't do the shit, because I was the scorekeeper that night for that game.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
and you guys scored with like a second and a half. Was it at the Mills? I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly.
Yes, it was the Mills. Yep.
I kept that game 100%.
Yeah, and I remember Spyros after the game, he hands me the trophy, and he even said to me, he goes, "That's one of the craziest endings we've ever had in H&A." And I was like, "I'll take it. I'll freaking take it."
I had a friend of mine in the box, and we were watching, and me and him were just like, "Did that really just happen?" Because at the time, I thought it went to a shootout. So when you guys were pulled the goalie, I was like, wait a minute, what are they doing? Are they really risking an empty net in a championship game? And then when Spyros told me the rules, like, oh.
Yep. And luckily, who was it? Somebody on my team knew that rule. And if we wouldn't have known that, we wouldn't have pulled our goalie, and we probably wouldn't have scored. So luckily, we had somebody who actually read the rule book for H&A.
There's a few people that don't read the rules. And then one thing that I will say, it's another difference between other leagues is Centene, Brentwood, and Maryville. I don't think Arch is. They're under USA Hockey, so they have to abide by those rules. They can have their own little twists to them, but they have to pretty much go by that standard rule book just for the sake of officiating. H&A doesn't go by that, and there's a few different rules. Like the blue line icing might be my favorite just because it helps the game flow go better. Then there's like the difference between a game ejection and a game misconduct. An ejection just sends you home for the night. A game misconduct will result in a suspension. Just little twerks and like that rule. The equipment's a little more strict. We actually, I'm sure you remember them today, where you had to have matching pants and helmets. And that didn't really fly with a lot of people. And at one point, before I was around, I heard there was a rumor they tried to do matching gloves. And that was just never going to fly, because that's $180 a pair for people. And unless you're going to play it again and buying the cheap pair for $20 off the used sale sign. But nobody wants to pay that. Like, I have black pants. I have black helmet. I know it's the most common. But like, and the one thing I do like is it did look professional, and it looked a lot nicer on the ice. But, there's people that have navy. It's not that far off. I get that. People have white helmets. That's really not the big deal. I think the one that really, I wouldn't even say it bugs me. The one I think that it just didn't look good is if you see somebody with like a red jersey and red socks and they're wearing green pants. It's like, what are you doing? Like, put something a little better on. It looks kind of tacky. So I understand why they got rid of the rule, and I'm not, against getting rid of that rule. And then you have the helmet rule where, I think anybody who doesn't wear any kind of shield is a moron. Like, it's a lot of risk. If you want to do it, knock yourself out, be my guest. But in H&A, you have to have a half shield, and then you obviously have to have an ear flaps, which I personally think might be the dumbest rule in the world, because I'm sure you've noticed those ear flaps. I actually got one on my desk here. They're made out of a little piece of plastic.
Yeah.
And they don't protect you. I had one of my best friends take a puck in the ear with ear guards on, and his whole ear was like gashed open, and it wouldn't have made any difference if it was there or not. And I think the thing that bugs me the most is there's teams out there, if they see a guy that's not wearing ear flaps, they start crying to the officials over it.
Oh,
it's like, you guys are in, anywhere from there's guys in our 20s in this league, and there's guys all the way up to 50s. Let them play with that the ear flaps. It doesn't matter. Like, the scorekeeper isn't supposed to be the one who reports that. We don't need players crying to referees over that. And there's a couple of teams that do that around here. And it's like, guys, really? You're acting like 5-year-olds, basically tattletaling. So it's just something that bugs me personally.
I've actually seen somebody got slammed into the boards just because he was like flying to try and get back, and he slammed his own body into the boards. He hit his helmet, and the freaking ear flap cut in half, and half of it just falls right off. And it was just like, wow, if that would have been a puck or a stick, that wouldn't have mattered. Like, that being there didn't matter.
No, they're super flimsy. They're, like I said, it's like almost a rubber plastic combo. And I think it's something, and I've actually talked with Elliot, the head, like I said, the head of H&A. St. Louis is one of only 2 cities that actually still enforces that rule anymore. It's us, and I think it's the city of New Jersey or New York, one of the 2. He couldn't remember. I've had this conversation with him. So I think it's something that if most of the admin board's on board with it, which I think we are, I think it's something that will go away in the next couple of years, hopefully.
It's good to know. I'll bring it up at the next captain's meeting. How about that?
It's been a hot topic at a lot of those meetings lately.
Yes. Yep. Well, I want to talk to you, too, about something you're kind of doing on the side. And I think I'm going to guess, you started doing it as fun, but now it's kind of taken off. You're doing a lot of adult hockey tournaments. And so it started with one that a lot of people in the area know, Hotter Than Hell, a great St. Louis summer hockey tournament. But you're doing them now, and you can find them all over at Cally-Tourneys.com. And Cally is spelled Cally. Tell us a little bit about Cali Tourneys and the kind of tournaments you hold.
So the original idea, actually, it was supposed to only be a one-time thing. So in 2022, I got married, and when we were trying to save up money for the wedding, we were just trying to think of extra side gigs. And there was an old tournament company that ran around here for a while, and they just didn't want to run tournaments anymore, and they kind of fizzled out, essentially. And I even talked to the guy that ran it. I said, hey, I don't want to step on toes. I don't want to do anything, but if you're done, I'd like to try this. And he said, we've been done. Go right for it. So I was like, I'm just going to do a one-off thing, make a few little extra side cash, get everybody out, because there's a lot of teams that don't play summer hockey. If you notice, like H&A, the teams are almost cut into a third. Centene, there's half the normal teams. So I was like, this will be something fun for the guys to put together. And I did it in the middle of July. And I expected maybe 8 teams, like 2 groups of 4, go throughout the day a little bit, not be there. We had 16 teams our first tournament. We had 4 groups of 4. Games were super even. 3 of the 4 championship games went to overtime, and the other game was a 2-goal game. And the Hotter Than Hell one is going to always be, quote unquote, the staple of the flagship of the business, because what we do is, Maryville agrees to this, after every game, there's a cooler of beer in your locker room ready to start drinking. And we run that every game. It's exhausting at the end, because it's like, oh, hold on, we got to grab the cooler out, bring it back in, see if they left any, fill it up with the right amount of beer per roster. I think we put like 16 beers in for each game or something like that. And if you have a roster of 20, I'm sorry, I'm not putting more in there for you. But it blew up really quickly. And I was like, I did not expect it. And what we ended up doing is I had a bunch of people ask me, like, are you going to do this? Are you going to keep doing this? I'm like, I haven't really thought about it yet. So I took some time. I got married a couple of months later, went on my honeymoon, and towards November, December, people started asking, hey, are you going to do this again next year? And I was like, I'll give it another crack, see what we come up with. And, if it's the same level, maybe make this a yearly thing. Well, the next season, it went from 16 to 23 teams, and it got overfilled where Maryville had a couple slots that were taken that were just miscommunicated and not on the thing. I had to move a couple games to a different rink just to make sure we had them covered. And it was incredible how much it blew up, and everybody was just excited. People were fighting for registration spots. And my buddy Tyler, who helped me out the second one, he wasn't around for the first event. He wanted to help out in the second. Me and him got to thinking maybe grow this a little bit. So we did a fall tournament last year, which is coming up, our fall brawl at the end of September. Spots are still open. And it was a smaller tournament. I think it had 11 teams last year, 10 or 11. but it's right before the fall season gets going and everybody can get geared up and warmed up because, like the people who don't play. And then we started expanding. I had a team in town last year from Evansville, Indiana, and one of them happens to be the rink owner at Swander Ice. His name's Nick Perriman. He's a great guy. He wanted to bring a tournament to Evansville. So we had our first out-of-town tournament this year in early June. It was actually a couple weeks before Toronto. And it was a smaller event because it's still, getting the ground off it. And unfortunately for me, I don't really know the out-of-town markets yet. I'm still getting to learn all of them. But we got into the idea of maybe we've got 8 on the books next year. It's going to be an insane year. We've got cities. We're going back to Evansville. Kansas City just opened a brand new facility. We're going to go out for a tournament there. We're going to Chicago, Illinois, where the Blackhawks practice facility is, which I'm really excited. And then we're going to Clarksville, Tennessee next year as well. Hard to get into Nashville, I found out. I thought about going to the big city where everybody loves to go. It's actually my favorite city to travel to personally, but their ice rinks are booked out 3-4 years in advance. So I don't know.
Wow.
It's incredible how booked up they are. So we've been traveling and we're going to Oklahoma City next year. We just got that tournament finalized. And I found out that Oklahoma's a big hockey market. So I'm really excited and curious to see how that market is. And one thing I would love for these St. Louis teams to do, a lot of them play, as shout outs to teams like OB Clarks plays in almost every tournament local here. The Se13 OB Clarks. I don't know anybody on the other one. The Wombats are like an Illinois team. They come in almost every tournament. My 2 teams pretty much playing every single one. There's an Ironman team that's a really good group of guys. They come to every St. Louis tournament. I want to get them to start traveling to 1 or 2 of the events out of town a year. And I get it. People have families. People have stuff going on. It's hard to, get that week in advance. But I think with the head of schedule, the biggest thing I hear about tournaments is people want to see new teams. Well, if all the local teams are playing, you're going to run into teams you've seen before. If you start traveling and go outside, Evansville's 3 hours from here. Kansas City, we know, is 3.5. Chicago's 5, maybe a little bit less, depending on how fast you drive. You're going to see a lot of different faces in those teams. And I think it's what's going to help not only grow the St. Louis community, but grow hockey as a whole across the Midwest.
Yeah, and that's what we want. I mean, look at State Wars, which is the roller hockey tournament. Getting teams from all over to just travel for those tournaments is huge for the sport of hockey. So seeing it with ice hockey, that's something you just want to see. So 8 tournaments next year, dude, that's fantastic. I knew that this was like a newer kind of venture for you. I didn't realize it was booming that much. So congratulations. And Cali-Tourneys.com. Check that out if you're interested in either playing in a St. Louis tournament or traveling to another Midwest city, which is really awesome. I didn't realize you were going to Kansas City at the new facility. I heard that place is supposed to be state of the art. That's really cool, man.
It is actually, and the funny part is I've actually been the one reaching out to all these rinks, checking out. The biggest thing's trying to find rinks with 2 sheets because you don't want to have one with just 1 sheet. Otherwise, you're very limited to what you can bring in. This facility found us somehow, which was really cool. And Simon's the guy's name, and he's a really cool guy. He's going to be the general manager there. I think it's slated to open here very soon, if I'm not mistaken. So we're going out there in August. We're going to have a full calendar slated out after fall brawl. October, November, we're going to work on finalizing our schedule, getting the details. And speaking of Tyler Henson's done an incredible job being my director. And I also want to give 2 shout outs to Austin Hilsing and Chris Merriman. They've done an incredible job. Both are guys you've seen on my Vipers teams. Yep, they do an incredible job helping run beer, scorekeeping. There's plenty more guys that help out with this. It's not just a 1-man team or a 2-man. This doesn't happen without them. And I always try to make sure like they get to travel with me. Austin and Jared Wenzel got to come out with me to Evansville, and the company covers like the stay, the travel, all that kind of stuff, and they just have an absolute blast being in. And I'm really excited to see where this takes off next year.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. We'll have to check in with you next summer to see how things are going. That's fantastic. So, H&A admin, you are doing your own tournaments. You're also doing broadcasting. Tell me about that.
So I've been wanting to be in sports broadcasting since, oh God, I was a little kid. Like I would be the guy that would turn off the broadcasters on video games and call my own games. That was
Me too. Yep.
I did that all sports games, and the ones I really do well with are football and ice hockey. And I got a great opportunity with the Blues Warriors, who they broadcast their own games, and they've had their players kind of come and go through it, and they just they're kind of like, oh, we'll give it a crack, and they struggle to get through the game because they're like they can't keep up with the flow and stuff. And so they hit me up one time because I know a few guys in the organization. And Jason Vanover's like, why don't you call a couple of games? They had a local tournament here, and they do exhibitions all over the place. And people were just stunned at how well it went right off the bat. And I've always been just, I know the flow of the game. It's something I've been around for so long. And I started traveling with that team, with the organization for a couple. I went to New Jersey with them, and I also got to go to Denver last year with them just to call games. And it was just a really cool experience. And it was kind of I wouldn't say it's a launch because I'm still in the process of trying to get into, it's basically a freelance right now. I actually just landed a gig being the voice of the Fort Zumwalt North Panthers for the upcoming football season, which I'm really excited for. I got to call a Zumwalt South like 8th grade freshman level game last week, actually. And it's just a fun time, and it's just something I thoroughly enjoy. And eventually I want to get this somewhere in my career, but it's just, I'm sure you, as well as anybody knows now, you just got to know people in the field. And unfortunately, that's where I kind of draw a little bit of a blank on.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I made some good connections in college myself, which is how I got into blues media. But, I knew I had the talent. I knew I could do it. It was just a matter of, I need to know the people. And so, yeah, for you, I just, only advice I'll give you is just keep connecting, keep working with new people, and you'll make those connections that you need to make.
Yeah, my biggest break I've had so far is I actually got the honor of calling last year's high school state championship games over at Se13, and it was by far one of the coolest experiences of my life. I remember when I was playing in high school hockey, they threw the state championship games down at Enterprise, Savas, Scottrade, whatever it was called at the time. And they moved it to Se13, and I don't know the reason why, to be honest, but I got to call that game. But I'm sitting up in the little broadcast booth at center ice on the top, and I'm seeing people pour in, and there's 3,000, 3,500 people, standing room, seats are filled to capacity. I'm like, this is such a cool experience. I'm going to have so much fun doing this. And it was a great game. It was DeSmet and Marquette. DeSmet ended up winning, which little pain in my side since I'm a CBC grad, but it was still a very cool experience to call.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I've been to some of those high school championships, and it's fast too. Like, obviously hockey's a fast sport, but you watch the non-NHL games, and you're just like, oh, I can handle this speed. Those kids are going 9,000 miles per hour in those championship games because they want it so bad. It's become such a staple and a big part of St. Louis hockey to win one of those championships. So calling that game, I'm sure, was difficult, but like you said, enjoyable and fun.
Oh, it was so much fun. It's fun seeing. I played high school hockey, 10 years ago. These kids are twice as fast as what we used to be. I don't know what kids are being fed these days or what it is, but my goodness, it is so much faster than what it used to be. I swear. Either that or my eyes are just getting old at this point.
That's part of it for me too. Brad, always good talking to you. Guy that I've known now for a couple years, and again, we'll call you a friend. Why not? Now you're a friend of Let's Go Blues Radio, so that's even more exciting. Great having you on. You're an assistant administrator at H&A. People can check out H&A if you're interested in joining the league as a player or as a team at hna.com. You can check out Brad's hockey tournaments at cali-tourneys.com. And again, you can message him directly. You said your Facebook is good and your cell phone, both on the website. People can find if they have questions. Best of luck to you in your broadcasting career. I know it's a very exciting time. Calling hockey is hard to do, so if you can do it, go for it, because you've got to be quick-witted, and you've got to be you have to have good eyes to do it. So if you can do it, keep going, man. It's a hard thing to do.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for having me on. It was always great talking to you. Like you said, we've known each other for a couple of years now, and you always put together a great hockey team with the Force. I love, playing against you guys and seeing you guys out there, whether it's a ref, a scorekeeper, or if I'm just scoping out games and just making sure everything's running smooth. But it's always good seeing you, and it was great talking to you, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Of course, yep. And again, hna.com, Cali-Tourneys.com. That is Brad Callahan. Thanks again, Brad.
Thanks, Jeff. Take care.
Yep. Well, I again want to thank Brad for coming on. I've known Brad for a couple of years now, and a very knowledgeable guy about the sport of hockey. So really appreciate him taking time out of his day to join us on Let's Go Blues Radio. And as I said, become a friend of Let's Go Blues Radio. Next week, we will have Bill, hopefully, to talk about his latest showing in net. About a month ago now, we rented out a rink, and we didn't do a full scrimmage. We just kind of had a shoot-around fun time with Bill. Me and a couple of our sponsors and then a couple of friends of ours all came, and we just kind of ran some drills and did like breakaways and 2-on-1s and, fun stuff like that. Just got full video of it, and so we'll be talking through that, and we'll have Bill back to talk about his progression in getting back in net. So always love doing these shows. I mean, it's only be our second one that we've done like this, but that first one was a lot of fun, and doing the shoot-around was an absolute blast. So hopefully the next time I talk to you, I will be COVID-free. We'll see, because I am getting annoyed by this. So that'll do it for today's show. Support for Let's Go Blues Radio is brought to you in part by Mike Burgoyne from Real Brokerage Realty. Email him at mike@strikewithmike.com today for all of your home buying and selling needs. That's mike@strikewithmike.com. And by Wolf Power Washing, St. Louis's premier power washing company with the best rates in town. Call Joe Wolf at 314-420-5434 and get the best looking and greatest power washer in the area. That's 314-420-5434. That'll do it for episode 46 of season 13 of the original St. Louis Blues Hockey Podcast, Let's Go Blues Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a great week, everyone. For Kirk Price and Bill Day, I'm Jeff Ponder, and I'll talk with you next time. This was Let's Go Blues Radio. Until next time, everyone, go away, COVID. Let's go Blues.
The Chiefs are at home tonight against Sport at the War Memorial at 8. Good seats are still available.
A look at fourth.
I think that went very well.
Thank you for listening to Let's Go Blues Radio. Now take off, hosers.
I want you to have a heart attack and die so that we never have to do this shit again.
Well, there's 90 minutes of your life you'll never get back. Sorry.
St. Louis Blues, St. Louis Blues. Have you heard the news about our St. Louis Blues? They've only just begun, they're on their way to number one. Now there's no more blues for our St. Louis Blues. The Blues are on the ice tonight again. They're rough and tough and got the stuff to win. They'll always get one more, no matter what the score. They are quite a hockey team, my friend.